Now, under the general options for mapping, we have the mapping name. And for presentation purposes, you can modify the mapping name. Working Papers defaults the mapping name to map number for presentation on the lead sheet and trial balance reports, and this can be changed as necessary. The name you enter updates all the program areas using the mapping name for the current file only. Underneath that, we have our mapping mask. Now, the X's represent placeholders for alphanumeric characters that would be a part of the map number. The decimals and dashes indicate a sub-tier for each level. This mapping mask can be up to 40 characters, so you could potentially have 20-tier level map with the letter or number and a separator, another letter, number, separator, and so on. Our default, and this has been our North American gap mapping structure since 1996, I believe, and it's been extended a little bit over the years, but it's a 3-digit separator, 3-digit separator, and 2-digit mapping mask. Now, it's very important to have the mask created in the tools options, general options for mapping, because this allows us to use wildcards then when we're linking to map numbers. Without the mask, the wildcards won't properly roll up if we're at a certain tier level. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you have the mapping mask. And by default, map numbers are left justified. If we want to change the appearance of the map number or create an alternate layout, we simply enter the structure in the mapping mask box. Under the Assign Mapping options, we have the option to show account balances in the Assign Mapping Numbers dialog. Now, we haven't got there yet, and I'm going to leave this off here, but I will turn it on in the Assign Mapping Numbers dialog so that we can see what that looks like. We also have the ability to create placeholders for missing map numbers. Now, over here I've got map number 111 and then some sub-map numbers to it. If I didn't have a 111 here, creating a placeholder for the missing map number in the Assign Mapping dialog would show a 111 account because it would be the top level tier even if the 111 didn't exist. If the 111 didn't exist, that missing placeholder that's displayed in the Assign Mapping dialog would not be assignable to any account. Now, we also have autofill options available to us. We can specify how we want Working Papers to complete the account properties when assigning map numbers to the chart of accounts. And when mapping numbers are autofilled, Working Papers populates the tax codes with entity-specific code links through the mapping numbers. If there's no entity-specific tax code for a map number, then the generic tax code is used if available. If not available, then the autofill procedures leaves the correct as is. For example, or we can choose to autofill select account properties. Now, let's go back to autofill all account properties momentarily. You can select this option when assigning map numbers to overwrite all existing account properties with the properties of the map number. This affects properties that are common between map numbers and account numbers such as type, sign, lead sheet, ratio class, groups 2 through 10, and the tax export code. If we choose to autofill selected account properties, then we can pick and choose which items that will be overwritten when we autofill the account properties with the map number properties. All mapping report properties, the draft financial statements, are grouped together as one option named mapping report properties in this layout. We also have the ability to only autofill properties if blank. This comes in very handy if you've recently migrated from another Working Papers package into CaseWare Working Papers and are wanting to maintain the groupings from the previous package. We can still use the mapping and not clobber all of your previous groupings by specifying to only autofill the properties if blank. Another way of doing this might be just to choose autofill select account properties so that you can overwrite properties that you wish to overwrite while leaving the properties that you don't want to overwrite unselected. Clear account properties of corresponding map number properties are blank, and if the mapping database has a blank, for example, my group 2s are blank here, but my account had a group 2 assigned to it, checking this would remove the group 2 property from the account. We also have the ability to choose which accounts get autofilled based on the selected map number. And if I select this, we have a selection box that shows us the map numbers that are going to autofill. I can uncheck these items, and then any unchecked item would not automatically autofill. I'm going to close that. Finally, we have the auto map. Well, the autofill now button will take care of autofilling everything for us. Underneath that, with auto map, we can click auto map now to map any unmapped accounts automatically by looking at specific properties that have been previously assigned to them. The ratio class, and in the US the tax code, and in Canada the GIFI code, and matching it against the client file mapping structures. Word matching is then used to try and narrow down an appropriate map number from the group of possible matches. Now we're going to come back later to AutoMap now when we're in a different file. So I'm just going to click OK here. To set up mapping properties, we access the mapping under the engagement menu, which is where I am right now. Here we have two tabs available to us, and we can reorder the columns of the properties that we have available to us in either of the tabs. Using View, Reorder Columns, we can see the active columns that are in my Mapping tab, and we have hidden columns that are available to us as well. There are approximately 50 to 60 properties on the Mapping tab that are available, and all of these properties can be assigned to an account. So by creating the mapping database first and setting it up for your firm's standards, assigning the mapping number to any account will take on the appropriate properties to push those accounts out to the various reports that you may have built into your templates. So we would use this area to create a master chart of accounts common to all clients and independent of the client's charts of accounts. For an overview, there is information in the help files, of course, with mapping overview. Just do a search on mapping overview in the help. I'm going to cover that here, so we'll continue to talk about mapping. For consistency across client files, the mapping database must include the greatest number of accounts possible. So map numbers in the mapping database are then assigned or mapped to the client chart of accounts. We're going to see how to do that momentarily. Map numbers contain identical fields to the account numbers. So here we see some of those fields, and if I just resize this a little bit and bring up my trial balance and resize that a little bit, we can see the common attributes. For example, lead sheet, statement type. I've got my map number here, that's over there. The sign is coming in as well, and so on. So all these properties can be driven by the map number into the account properties. When linking the chart of accounts to CaseView, account mapping presets the financial statements by map number. Because the map number is independent of the client charts of accounts, account mapping ensures that a minimum amount of modification to the financial statements would be required.